Hey folks, welcome to Bare Metal Forge again. I know I kind of talked about the railroad spikes the other day. I know a lot of people give them a bad name, but I'm the one that thinks that if you've got a spike that has been sitting in a railroad track for years and does not show any signs of wear, because those tracks, due to the weight of the trains, those things are in constant motion. Everything's always moving. They get worn. But the thing that gets me is if a railroad spike does not have enough carbon in them to hold an edge, then how do you explain that you can go to a track that's 70, 80, 100 years old and find where they have pulled out the ties, and you can pull a spike out that has never been replaced? The corners of the shank are good. They're not worn. There's no indication of where that metal plate has wore out, anything around those spikes. The only time you'll see any deformation to one of these spikes is if you've seen it where they have wiggled up over time and a piece of machinery, heavy machinery mind you, has caught it and bent it and pulled it out, or either they've been in there so long that they've rusted and have pits. But other than that, you really don't see any wear on a railroad spike. This is why I think that the older ones do have enough carbon in them to make a knife out of. And I know that you can call somebody and, oh no they don't, no they don't. You have no idea how much carbon was in the older ones. You really don't. Because these factories would get a load of steel in, and they would make these things out of the same steel that they made other stuff with, that blacksmiths made stuff out of. The same batch of steel that was rolled. The same batch of steel that was formed. That's why I think the older ones are absolutely fine to make knives out of. And like I said again, with any amount of use, you're going to have to sharpen a knife. No matter what it is, if it's stamped out, hand forged, it's gonna have to be sharpened. But this is why I like the older railroad spikes better. They actually do have more carbon in them than the newer ones, especially within the last 50, 60 years. If you can find the ones that are from 150 or older track, those I think are really, really nice to work with. And I have a couple here to show you, and I'll spin the camera around and show you which ones I'm talking about and what I'm talking about with the machinery and the ones that hadn't been hit. So here we go. All right, these right here are probably 80, 90 years old. If you look, you don't see any deformation around it. The corners are still good on it, not bent. It's not really rusted that bad, so it really wasn't in a wet area. This one here, it's a little bit older. It might be about 100 years old, because different years they made different sizes of them. But if you'll notice this one, the corners are still good. There's no deformation. It's not bent. It's still good. So that tells me that there's a high amount of carbon in it. It may not be as high as some other steels, but there's still a high enough carbon in here that you can make a knife out of these, and it'll still do well on a hardness. Now these are deformed because they've wiggled up over time and a piece of machinery has caught them. And if you'll notice the head of this one, there's a piece of machinery caught it and hooked it and bent it. And that's only because it wiggled up over time. Just like this one right here. This one wiggled up enough, a piece of machinery caught it and bent it. But you'll still notice that it did not break off. All it did was bend. Got a notch in it and it bent. But other than that, look at the corners. The corners are still good. Most of the shank down here is still straight, but that thing was bent due to a heavy piece of machinery. And I think this is why a lot of these things get a bad name, is just, I think, the newer ones. Guys get hold of the newer ones. They may not retain an edge, but like I said, you're gonna have to sharpen them with any amount of use. I don't think they're just for display purposes. I think you can use them. But anyway, that's my argument with them. I like them, especially the older ones. Like I said, 80, 90, 100, or even older than that. I think they do actually have enough carbon in them that you can use them as a knife. But anyway, that's my little soapbox thing for today. Hope y'all guys liked the video. Like and subscribe. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.